Okay, welcome to day 5 of the 2021 Planetary Health Annual Meeting, co-hosted by the University of São Paulo and the Planetary Health Alliance. I am Rebecca Camaroto. I'm academic assistant at the Research Provost Office of the University of São Paulo, based in our main campus here in São Paulo. I'm very pleased to be introducing the Science Lightning Talk session entitled Displacement, Disruption, and Conflict. I'd like to briefly introduce our moderator, Dr. Eduardo Viola, and then turn it over to them for further introductions and to lead us through this conversation. Dr. Eduardo Viola is full professor of the postgraduate program in International Relations of the University of Brasilia and senior researcher fellow of the Institute for Advanced Studies at University of São Paulo. Welcome, Dr. Viola. Thanks for being here. Over to you.
Okay, many thanks, many thanks. Good afternoon to everybody. So I think better than me talking about the issue, it would be much better the authors of very interesting proposal papers start to talk about them.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Byomkesh Talukder. I am working at Dadala Institute for Global Health Research, York University, Canada. The title of my presentation is Water Food Energy Nexus Effects on Farmers' Health of the Southwest Coastal Agricultural System in Bangladesh. The farmers of the study area are doing agriculture in a very vulnerable situation. For example, increasing salinity, frequent cyclone, and sea level rise. In the study area, farmers are doing shrimp-based agriculture, shrimp plus rice-based agriculture, and rice plus shrimp plus vegetable-based agriculture. To investigate the health impact of water, food, energy nexus of the agricultural systems on farmers' health, data were collected from literature review, questionnaire survey, field observations, key informant interviews, and focal group discussion. And indicators were developed for yield, energy yield, protein yield, overall biodiversity condition, overall energy efficiency, and land use. In this slide, you see that the indicator values of water, energy, and food of integrated agriculture systems are better than other two agricultural systems. In this slide, you can see farmers of integrated agriculture systems are collecting drinking and household water from tube oil, whereas farmers of shrimp and rice plus shrimp-based agriculture systems are collecting household and drinking water mostly from pond water. And also, the farmers of integrated agriculture system are getting more calories and protein from their agriculture systems. In this slide, you can see shrimp-based agriculture systems have higher waterborne infectious disease, whereas there is no waterborne infectious disease in integrated agriculture system. In case of non-infectious disease among farmers, high blood pressure is high in shrimp-based agriculture system compared to integrated agriculture systems. Our analysis shows that integrated agriculture system is more food and nutritional secure, resilient, low input agriculture, support biodiversity, ensure livelihood, and support women empowerment and protect health, as well as it is associated with SDGs 1, 2, 5, 6, 12, 13, 15, and 17. Based on our findings, we are suggesting for further research as farmers' health is related with food production systems. Farmers' health are also associated with ecosystems, extreme weather events, disaster management, and public health. Thank you very much for listening.
Hi everyone, Charles Ssemugabo here from Margoluis University School of Public Health. I'll talk to you about our work on perspectives of urban slum youths on health risks in their environment that was done in Kampala, Uganda. So we carried out this work to explore urban health risks that fall short of the planetary health boundaries among urban slums. And we had 10 youths that we trained to take photos on urban health risks, but also trained them on camera use and ethics of photography. Then we gave them cameras to take photos for 2.5 weeks. And during that period, we used to meet every 2 weeks to discuss the photos and generate a data set that we analyze using thematic content analysis with the guide of Kate Rout's donut economic model. And so from that, we found that there were a couple of risks that fell below the social foundation, and these compromised the lives of the slum dwellers, and these included indiscriminate disposal of solid waste and liquid waste that resulted into environmental degradation, as well as poor food hygiene and safety that could expose people to food-related illnesses. There was also poor physical infrastructure that resulted into overcrowding and increasing the risks of transmission of diseases. Unsafe sexual practices where people have multiple sexual partners but don't use condoms, and thus this increases their chances of contracting diseases, and unsafe environments that resulted into high crime rates and violence, undesirable working conditions that including people working in environments that expose them to heavy dust and mosquito injuries, and this could as well affect their lives. But there are also those risks that exceeded the ecological ceiling, like land conversion, where people settle in slums and in swamps, and this puts them at risk of flooding and consequently drowning. And in fact, there have been some deaths as a result of that, especially of young kids, but also pollution from traffic and the sources of energy used for cooking food that affect their health, and consequently climate change. So from this work, we found this work keen and to discuss the shows that post them undesirable situations below the planetary health expectations, and that them living in swamp areas and using biomedic causes them to adverse health risks while degrading the environment. And as such, there is need to ensure that areas are adequately planned. Thank you.
The crucible for 21st century conservation is arguably sub-Saharan Africa. Nowhere else will see a greater increase in human population or growth in demand for natural resources. And nowhere else has more terrestrial wildlife than sub-Saharan Africa. By the end of this talk, you'll have a better understanding of how integrating health and conservation activities can provide benefits to both people and wildlife. The Tuangani project in Western Tanzania focuses on healthier families, healthier fisheries, and healthier forests. At the heart of the project area is Mahale Mountains National Park. This park is home to at least 82 mammal species, including elephants, leopards, and chimpanzees. The major issues facing the Tuangani project are the same facing much of sub-Saharan Africa, including a rapidly growing human population, poor health and education indicators, and unsustainable use of natural resources. Traditionally, each of these issues would be addressed separately, but single sector approaches often create unexpected problems. Providing insecticide-treated bed nets to reduce malaria, for instance, negatively impacts fish stocks because the nets are used to catch baby fish, as you see here. People in rural areas of sub-Saharan Africa lead integrated lives. And there is growing evidence that integrated projects yield greater benefits because they address interrelated problems. As the field of planetary health develops, it's critical that it supports integrated programming based on the recognition that humans and the environment are inextricably linked. Prior to the Tuangani project starting, we conducted a baseline survey to measure human well-being. 5 years later, we repeated the survey and cross-checked the results. What did we find? Overall, families said they were better off than before. At baseline, the majority of households said they had difficulty meeting their daily needs. 5 years later, this dropped to a bit more than 1/3 of households. A drop in child mortality is among the most important changes we found. Saving children's lives matters for both people and nature. As people become more confident that their current children will live, they space out their births, which makes mothers and children healthier and ultimately reduces the pressure on forests and fisheries. Among families, there was an increase in the number of married women using contraception. While unmet need for family planning was reduced by the project, it was still at 51%. Fisheries are the economic engine of this area. Those reporting an increase in fish catch compared to 5 years ago rose from 9 to 33%. We are pleased also to see a drop in charcoal consumption. This decline is good for area forests. In closing, Tuangani means let's unite in Kiswahili. And that's what this project does. It unites health and conservation in an integrated way that boosts the benefits to both. If we want to achieve positive health and conservation impacts that are sustainable, then it's key that we support integrated programming to address the integrated challenges that rural people in developing countries face. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm presenting the preliminary findings from a recent qualitative research study conducted by myself, Dr. Laura Brown, and my good friend and colleague, Dr. Elaine Flores. Women's health in Peru. We conducted 18 semi-structured remote in-depth interviews with key informants, 6 from academia, 6 from the public sector, and 6 from the third sector. We used a thematic analysis approach to compare priorities, gender sensitivity, and barriers and facilitators to delivering women's environmental health projects. We found that priorities were not always well aligned across organizations, with few explicitly focusing on the environment, gender, and health nexus. We've included some quotes in the presentation for you to read, and we have additional quotes on our poster you can look at later too. Interviewees identified several barriers to collaboration, including machismo, a lack of interdisciplinarity and intersectorality, and high staff turnover. Some interviewees also identified aspects which helped collaboration, such as having direct relationships built on reputation and trust with transparency and accountability. Several interviewees emphasized the harsh realities of invisibilized groups, as shown in this quote from an academic about Indigenous rights, which I'll read out now. You need to understand that you have rights, that you should not give up your land, or what benefits you can have that will serve you from generation to generation, and not only for a year. So for this, you need to understand the language per se, but you also need to understand the system. In other words, it is a surprise that in Peru, there are really many great human rights policies, but they're not made effective. And the way in which they're made effective, it is not understood. That is, it's a system that's completely unfair, absent, invisible. Whilst invisibilization was a key problem, women's empowerment was offered as an important solution for successful program delivery. Our findings highlight the multiple and interrelated contextual issues faced by environmentally threatened communities in Peru and how macrostructural barriers contribute to a paucity of sustainable gender-oriented environmental health projects. Thank you for listening. Please check out our poster for more information.
Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, thank you for this opportunity to be able to share our work with you. The title of our paper is Climate Change Triggered Land Degradation and Planetary Health. This paper is currently with the journal and under review. Our main objective to write this paper was to build on and integrate literature that are currently in silos on the two dyads, climate change and land degradation and health. We thought this would be an efficient way of disseminating scientific knowledge to policymakers and other academics. We've taken a systems approach to build a conceptual model using the DPSEEA framework, which we have adapted to the study by not including the A. Using a systematic literature review to identify key papers and gray literature, we have answered the following questions, as you can see on the slide. For example, for the drivers, we've only focused on mechanisms that change or have the potential to degrade land, like altered soil moisture or soil salinity. And for state, we have only focused on how these processes change as a result of climate change. And finally, what are the exposure pathways through which humans are affected and what are its health consequences? To further show the significance of this study, we wanted to take a second and use this diagram to recognize the functional links between land degradation and most, if not all, the SDGs. Key findings, as you can see on this model, on this slide, have been grouped in 7 subcategories. In the interest of time, I won't read them all out, but I would like to share the most satisfying part of the findings, at least for me. We were able to link each subsystem to at least one or more of the other 6 categories. And also within each subcategory, we were able to identify linkages. For example, the 7th category there is migration and conflicts. We found migration to be a trigger for conflicts, and migration and conflicts together could be linked to all other 6 subcategories. And truly, this was what we hoped we could deliver with our study. Firstly, to help policymakers to better understand the complex pathways of climate change-induced land degradation and its planetary health impacts, and also to reveal the critical need for a complex system-based approach to understand the causal relationships and importance of integrated actions to mitigate the planetary health impact of climate change-induced land degradation. Thank you so much for listening, and I'd love to discuss and welcome all your suggestions.
Okay, so many thanks to all the presenters. So now we have time for questions and answers from the authors. So you can raise your hand or send the message through the Q&A. Okay. Well, I will start with one question. In this very interesting, the last paper, very interesting review of the literature. In your review, did you find a significant amount of cases in which the situation is close to something that could produce significant number of climate environmental refugees?
Hi, thanks for the question. We actually didn't look to quantify anything. We were mostly focused on looking at the processes and how we can connect them to the planetary health risk. But for the migration and conflict, it was very interesting because we found dynamics within migration, within that subsystem. And as I mentioned in the video, you know, migration could lead to conflict. And that together the component could could have some sort of links to food insecurity, communicable diseases, mostly through livelihood insecurities, and also putting pressure when you put too many people in one small area. But I don't know, Byomkesh also is a contributor to the paper. BK, did you want to add anything to it? You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. I think that is a fantastic question. Yeah. For what we have found, there may be a positive correlation with land degradation and environmental migration or environmental refugee. So I am basically from Bangladesh, and I have seen that in many parts in the coastal areas where normal agriculture is in caution due to some anthropogenic causes like sea level rise, and also the deforestation and clearing of the mangrove forest and introducing shrimp agricultures. So yeah, some people are migrating, but still it is questionable, because we need further research there whether degradation of land really triggering refugee or not. But my belief that will definitely trigger degradation, because when your production will go down, there will be a cascading consequences of food security as well as the livelihood issues, and then farmers probably, or poor people will probably move to the city. That will be the final destination, and that can actually create a lot of socioeconomic consequences in the city areas, first of all, especially in the poor countries where the population density is huge and there is less informal economy, and also there is a lot of social social consequence, already social factors that is actually having an impact on the low income people. So that definitely that can trigger a conflict. And also the Syria, it is said that the conflict in Syria is one of the cause of the degradation of the land due to the lack of rainfall, and also the favorable condition of doing agriculture in rural areas. So people have migrated in city areas, and then that actually lead them in different situation, and that actually eventually turned into the conflict. So that's what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much, Byomkesh. I don't know if I pronounced your name, but it was a very, very overview, very, very interesting answers. For sure, you are studying a lot this issue. So yeah. We have a question from Sam Myers. For it says, question for the first presenter. Given the clearly measured benefits of the integrated systems, why are so many people still not embracing those systems? Are there economic disadvantages or cultural reasons?
Oh yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Professor Sam Myers for these fantastic questions. It is really a great observation. I have been working in the coastal areas for the last, you can say, 25 years. And coastal agriculture and disaster management, and also role of the public administration in disaster management and also agricultural extension is my research areas. And later on, I worked on sustainability assessment of the coastal agricultural system in Bangladesh by applying multi-criteria decision analysis by using multi-indicators. So what actually we observed there, you are definitely right that integrated agriculture system, that is fish, rice, and vegetables, is much more energy efficient, productive, economically efficient, as well as it is actually preserving biodiversity. It is actually empowering women, because it is an agriculture system that requires labor all the year round, and your production is coming through year the round from a small piece of land. So you can say this system is very diversified as well as intensified, but also ensuring the ecosystem, everything. Now the question is why then are people in the coastal areas are not implementing this? Definitely there is a lack of government policies,
because you know the shrimp, 1 kg of shrimp in foreign trade, that is meta-couple system of the shrimp farming, like in USA, Canada, or Saudi Arabia, is like $10. So $10 means it's 600 taka in Bangladesh. So by just selling 1 kg of shrimp, you can get a huge amount of money. So the land actually grabbed by the big landlord and also many industries. So the marginalized people, so the poor people and smallholder farmers, they become now marginalized in that area. That is one problem. So government policy actually favoring the shrimp farmers. And then shrimp has an international demand. So there is no reduce of international demands in shrimp farming. So that mechanism is playing there. And then also the adaptation strategy that has been taken by the government of Bangladesh, to some extent, that is not actually bottom up. That is always top down. So bottom up is what is happening. They are not taking those things into the considerations. And also the poor farmers, they don't have that empowerment of the land, also empowerment of the money, or they have less access to in the decision making. That is also playing a huge role. But now many NGOs, as well as also many scholars, they are now pushing this these integrated agricultural systems and trying to make it as a policy option, and also the plan for the 100 years dental plan of Bangladesh, so that they can, the farmers in the coastal people, they can introduce this, and also they can bring back their previous agriculture system or ecosystem, that is regenerative agriculture or circular type of agriculture, so that they can have a good productivity, ensure livelihood, as well as can have a good life. So that's what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much. So the floor is open. Who would like to make a next question? Okay, if there is no other question, I will ask another question. This will be for the third presenter, Cheryl Margoluis, okay? And it's very interesting, this partnership between the Pathfinder International, the Nature Conservancy, and local authorities. I would like to know a little more about the food systems in the area where you are working. Are people aware of what would be a more healthy diet, for example? The idea of being very important, the consumption of fruit, vegetables, and so on.
Thank you, Eduardo, for the question. Yes, so this area is an area where we have primarily farmers who raise maize or corn. About 98% of households are farmers, and they're farmers who fish. Certain seasons of the year, when the fish migrate by in Lake Tanganyika, which is just where these villages are located, it's relatively easy to catch a lot of small fish that are about the size of a sardine, and they dry these fish. So what this means is they've got a lot of micronutrients from the fish and from the protein in the fish, and consequently you see very little malnutrition in the villages. Their caloric shortfalls, about 2 months out of the year, they have their time of hunger between harvests. But there's not a lot of micronutrient deficiencies. So overall, the people tend to be quite healthy there. The problem, however, is that 10 years ago when this project started, the fish catches were in severe decline. And the price had gone up, and it became less and less affordable for local people to buy the fish, or because they were so valuable, they were selling them rather than consuming them. Unfortunately, the fish catches seem to have been improved in the last 5 years, so we're seeing some positive signs. We measure actually fish abundance in several sites every couple of years. We measure fish diversity, the number of species of fish that are out there. I mean, most importantly, we also talk with fishers to get their impressions about do they perceive fish catches are improving? And the short answer is in the nearshore areas, yes, fish catches are definitely improving. The offshore areas, less so. And that's much harder to police because it's a lake, it's a massive lake, the second largest in the world, and it's shared by 4 countries. And so once you're offshore a ways, it's pretty much an open access fishery, and you can use any kind of gear that you want, whether it's sustainable or not. So there's still some biting challenges, but by and large, the nutrition side, other than some the caloric shortfalls at the in between harvest, it's pretty well. The people there have pretty good nutritional intake.
Thank you very much. So the floor continues open. Here we have Craig. From Rebecca, question to Laura Brown. What is the role of women in indigenous people of Peru? How that relates to the overall situation of women in the country?
Hello, thank you for the question. So we were focusing on the intersection of environment, gender and health, but within that we found particularly vulnerable groups of women, and Indigenous groups were identified as a particularly vulnerable group. And that's because of some of the historical issues around Indigenous women in Peru, but also the way that they are treated within their own subgroups of the population, as well as through people with more power in the dynamic structure of the country. They're particularly susceptible to machismo issues, for example. And I'm going to pass you to Elaine, who's got something she wants to add as well.
Thank you. I just want to add also that the role of women will vary across several distinct indigenous groups as well, concerned to different areas of the country. So in some of them, yes, as my colleague Laura mentions, the machismo is overspread, so they will have they will not be able to participate in meetings regarding their own territories and rights. However, in some other ones, from the interviews that we had from associations and organizations working there, they mentioned that the role of the women was more into taking over not only the traditional roles, but also the income generating roles, as men had to either migrate or go away from their villages and areas to get work. That also was highlighted during the COVID situation. I think there is another question.
Yeah. For you. You have identified that women empowerment has led projects to be more successful. What do you believe that changes when women are leading the projects?
One of the things that was also discussed across our interviewees would be related to the experiences of the participants in the communities themselves, but also from the academics and from the NGOs perspective, from their own the role of the women across their site staff. And they mention characteristics as being more responsible, or having I don't know, like being more able to multitask with their roles, and being able to achieve not only the milestones of the programs or the projects that they were participating to, but also they were able to generate change. That was their perspective. I don't know, Laura, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, just to add that we found that within the subsectors that we were speaking to, that they tended to be quite female biased as well. So those sectors that were trying to address issues related particularly to women's environmental health tended quite obviously to have a female bias. And also by empowering women, it seemed that the health of the other subgroups of the population was also being benefited. Women weren't just putting themselves forward, they were thinking about other members of their families, for example.
Okay, great. We have a 4 minutes left. So there is time for one question. What would you like to raise a question? Those are very interesting papers, so don't be shy. Well, if there's nobody asking a question, I will ask another question for you. The last presenters, not the last presenter, the last people, Laura and Elaine. How do you compare the status of women in the sample, in the groups that you have studied, with the general status of women in the Peruvian society? I know it's a difficult question, but it's just, you can elaborate a little bit.
So we didn't limit our focus to particular groups of women, but we found when we were asking about issues to do with women and environment, that particular subgroups were identified. But Peru has, like we mentioned, this kind of machismo culture, which shapes some of the gender inequality, which is manifested in health and environmental issues. So this was a big theme that came out as a contextual driver of some of the disparities in both engagement with environmental issues and health outcomes associated with them. So in terms of sort of gender inequality, Peru, like many other countries in the region, has issues around that. But yeah, it's related to kind of the cultural machismo aspect. But as Elaine said, it varies depending on the subgroup of women as to how that plays out. Okay,
thank you very much. So we need to finish. We just have 1 minute. So I appreciate very much the whole presentations, the very interesting research you are all doing in some situations, in difficult situations of people that you are researching. So it has been great, and thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.